the Philippines-Japan Comprehensive Strategic Partnership will proceed. We have elevated our relationship from a strengthened strategic partnership to a comprehensive strategic partnership. These are very important steps to further strengthen our defense cooperation and to uphold a rules-based maritime order.
On the morning of May 28, 2026, two leaders shook hands inside the Akasaka Palace in Tokyo. The building is Japan's Grand State Guest House. Gold trim, marble floors, a place built to welcome kings and presidents. But the handshake mattered far more than the setting. On one side stood Sanae Takaichi, Japan's prime minister. On the other stood Ferdinand Marcos Jr., the president of the Philippines. They smiled for the cameras. Then they announced something that could reshape the future of Asia's most dangerous waters.
We jointly announce the commencement of the negotiations for the General Security of Military Information Agreement, as well as for the delimitation of our maritime borders. These are very important steps to further strengthen our defense cooperation and to uphold a rules-based maritime order. They will enhance the mutual trust between our two countries.
Japan and the Philippines agreed to move closer than ever before. They will share secret military information. They will speed up the transfer of Japanese warships to the Philippine Navy. And they lifted the entire relationship to the highest level Japan offers any nation, a comprehensive strategic partnership. This was not a small ceremony. It was a turning point. Let me walk you through what happened, why it happened, and what it means for the balance of power in the region. The meeting produced several big decisions. Here is the most important one. Japan and the Philippines said they would start formal talks on an agreement to protect classified military information. In plain words, this lets the two countries share secrets safely. Why does that matter so much? Because Japan cannot hand over advanced military gear to a partner unless it trusts that partner to guard sensitive data. This pact removes that roadblock. Prime Minister Takaichi explained the goal simply. She said the two countries would keep deepening cooperation to respond to the increasingly severe strategic environment in the region.
Thank you.
President Marcos called the day's results very important steps to further strengthen our defense cooperation and to uphold a rules-based maritime order. The two leaders also agreed to speed up the transfer of Japanese destroyers to the Philippine Navy. Takaichi said both sides would accelerate work toward the transfer of Abukuma-class destroyers and other equipment. And they did not stop at weapons. They announced talks to settle their shared maritime borders. That may sound like a small detail, but it is not. Clear borders reduce confusion at sea, and confusion is exactly what China exploits. They also signed a deal to avoid double taxation, which makes business between the two countries easier. Japan even backed the Philippines for a temporary seat on the United Nations Security Council, with that vote coming next month. But the headline, the part everyone in the region noticed, was the ships. Let me tell you about these destroyers, because they explain why China is paying such close attention. They are called the Abukuma class. Japan built 6 of them between 1988 and 1991. Each ship weighs around 2,000 tons. Each is about 109 meters long. Each carries a crew of roughly 120 sailors. They can reach speeds of 27 knots, which is about 50 kilometers per hour. These are not huge ships, but they punch above their weight. They were among the first Japanese warships built with stealth features to lower their radar profile. They carry a main gun, harpoon anti-ship missiles, anti-submarine rockets, torpedoes, and a phalanx close-in defense gun. They were designed to hunt submarines and fight enemy ships in coastal waters. That last point is key. The Philippines is made up of more than 7,000 islands. It needs ships that can patrol tight, shallow waters close to the coast. The Abukuma class fits that job almost perfectly. There is one more reason the fit is so good. These ships are very close in size to the Philippine Navy's newest frigates, the Jose Rizal class. Those run about 2,600 tons and 107 meters. So Filipino sailors already know how to operate vessels of this size. The learning curve will be short, and that saves both time and money. Japan is retiring the Abukuma class and replacing it with newer Mogami-class frigates. So instead of scrapping the old ships, Tokyo is offering them to a friend. The destroyers are not the only hardware on the table. The same package includes more TC-90 training aircraft and other support equipment. The TC-90 is a small twin-engine plane that helps the Philippines watch over its vast ocean territory. So this deal is about ships, planes, and the systems that tie them together. Here is the part that surprised many people. The Philippines will not have to pay for the ships themselves. The transfer is a donation, not a sale. Philippine Defense Secretary Gilberto Teodoro said it plainly. The transfer is a giveaway. Manila will still pay to refit and upgrade the vessels. And the Philippines may not take all 6. Back in October 2025, Navy officials said they would be happy with 3. One Philippine senator captured the mood when he said, "Beggars can't be choosers. That's 6 destroyers." The first ships could arrive as early as 2027. Now here is something that makes this story bigger than a single arms deal. For most of the last 80 years, Japan was not allowed to do this. After World War II, Japan built its identity around peace. Its constitution limits its military. For decades, strict rules called the Three Principles blocked Japan from selling or giving weapons to other countries. Japan loosened those rules a little in 2014, but the big change came on April 21st, 2026. On that day, Japan revised its export framework to allow the export of lethal military systems under certain conditions. This was a major shift in how Japan sees itself in the world. Think about what that means. A country that spent generations avoiding the arms trade is now preparing to send warships abroad, and the Philippines could become the first nation to receive lethal Japanese military equipment under these new rules. Takaichi's government has gone even further. It scrapped a long-standing ban on exporting lethal weapons, and it plans to release a new national security strategy by the end of 2026. Step by step, Japan is rearming its foreign policy. So why is Japan doing all this? Why is the Philippines so eager to accept? The answer sits in the water between them. Both countries face the same problem in the same sea. For years, China's Coast Guard and its fishing militia have harassed Philippine vessels in the West Philippine Sea. They have fired water cannons at supply boats. They have blocked resupply missions to Philippine outposts. They have swarmed fishing grounds with hundreds of vessels. These actions sit in a gray zone, just below open war, but they put pressure on Manila almost every single day. China bases its claims on a line that covers most of the South China Sea. In 2016, an international tribunal ruled that this claim had no legal basis. China ignored the ruling and kept pushing. Marcos has not forgotten that ruling. In fact, he raised it during this very trip. He noted that July 2026 marks the 10th anniversary of that decision, and he used it to make his point about law versus force. Japan watches the same behavior near its own islands and around Taiwan. Tokyo worries that if China can rewrite the rules at sea, no smaller nation is safe. So the two countries have found common cause. As Marcos has said, both have faced the same difficulties from gray zone tactics.
Reinforce our continued commitment to the rule of law, to international law, to the UNCLOS for freedom of navigation in South China Sea. And that is something that we have based all of our dealings with Japan on, especially in the defense and security aspect of it.
There is a human cost behind these tensions too. Filipino fishermen who have worked the same waters for generations now find themselves chased away. Resupply missions to a small Philippine outpost have turned into tense standoffs. Each incident may seem minor on its own. Added together, they form a slow, steady squeeze. That is what gray zone pressure is designed to do. And that is what these new ships are meant to push back against. This summit did not come out of nowhere. It is the latest brick in a wall the two countries have been building for years. In July 2024, they signed a reciprocal access agreement. It lets troops from each country train on the other's soil. It was the first deal of its kind Japan ever signed in Asia, and it took effect in September 2025. They also signed an agreement that lets them share fuel, food, ammunition, and supplies during joint training. Japan has handed the Philippines 5 coastal surveillance radars. It has supplied Coast Guard ships. And in 2026, for the first time, around 1,400 Japanese troops joined the yearly Balikatan exercises alongside US and Philippine forces. Each step built trust. Each step made the next step easier. The destroyer deal is simply the boldest move yet. The trip had a powerful symbolic moment too. Marcos stood before Japan's National Diet, the country's parliament, and gave a speech. This is a rare honor. Only a handful of foreign leaders ever receive it. Marcos became just the 4th Philippine president to do so. His words were chosen with care. He said the two nations are committed to keeping their seas open, secure, and governed by rules, not by force. He also reached back into history. Japan once occupied the Philippines during World War II. The two nations could have stayed enemies. Instead, Marcos said, from the ashes of war, the Philippines and Japan chose reconciliation over division. That line shows how far the relationship has come. Former enemies are now close partners. This year marks the 70th anniversary of their diplomatic ties, and about 360,000 Filipinos now live and work in Japan. The bond runs deep, not only in defense, but in people. This was also Marcos's 4th visit to Japan as president, but it was the first state visit by a Philippine leader to Tokyo in 11 years. The Japanese rolled out the red carpet with a palace banquet and a prestigious national award.
The Philippines remains committed to working closely with Japan to harness our intensifying strategic partnership as a force for good, not only for our two countries, but also for the broader Indo-Pacific region.
There is a strategy hidden inside all of this. It points to a third country, the United States. Both Japan and the Philippines are treaty allies of the US. When Japan and the Philippines share intelligence, they also make it easier to work with American forces. Japanese officials say the Information Pact would tighten this three-way cooperation. Picture a triangle, with all 3 corners now better connected. Japan is also thinking long-term. Marcos's term ends in 2028. Past Philippine leaders have swung between leaning toward the US and leaning toward China. Tokyo wants this partnership to outlast any single president. Takaichi said the ties should be sustainable and multi-layered and not swayed by the changes of global environment. In other words, Japan is not just buying a friend for today. It is building a partner for the next 20 years. So where does this leave us? The deals are real, but the work is not finished. The Classified Information Pact still needs to be negotiated and signed. The destroyer transfer still needs final legal arrangements. Japan may even need to adjust its own self-defense laws to hand the ships over for free. The Philippines must still decide how many ships it wants and find the money to upgrade them. But the direction is now crystal clear. Japan and the Philippines are locking arms. They are doing it openly. And they are doing it because both believe the rules of the sea are under threat. Marcos summed up his whole approach in one simple line during the trip. Peace is in our national interest, he said. The bet behind this entire partnership is that strength helps keep that peace. 2 former enemies, standing together in a palace in Tokyo, are now placing their security in each other's hands. And in the contested waters of the Indo-Pacific, that handshake may echo for years to come.
Arigatou gozaimashita.